The Final Fantasy franchise as of 2022 is looking to be a lot for the coming years. With Final Fantasy 16 and the numerous projects with Final Fantasy 7 Remake and related games, Square's longest running franchise is going big on this next generation of hardware. But back in March 2022, they released a spin-off that people would soon forget about after a weekend to a few weeks or months. This game is Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins, a collaboration project between Square Enix and Koei Tecmo to celebrate the legacy of Final Fantasy. This is my fourth Final Fantasy title, and the others being Final Fantasy 7 Remake, 15, and the original Final Fantasy 7. Link in the description if you want to hear my thoughts on Final Fantasy 7. But back to Strangers of Paradise. The game reviews look to be good, but nothing to write home about. I got this game as an Easter gift along with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and wouldn't play it until mid to late June. And after waiting to play this game, will it be an experience that will have a personality and identity with all the other Final Fantasy games? Or is it a dumpster fire game that wants to exist as an anniversary game? This is the myth, the legend, Squidward 5, and this is my gaming essay on Strangers in Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. And is this game a hidden gem? And yes, I'm playing the PlayStation 4 version. Let's discuss the story first. The game takes place in a fictional universe in which you play as Jack Garland, a man whose only purpose in life is to kill and destroy chaos. You also have Jed and Ash, who also join in on the ride, along with two female characters, and will discover the truth about the memories inside these rocks and who these people are, along with their quest to find and kill chaos, of course. As a sub-game story, it's fine. You have your standard plot themes that help flesh it out more. As for the characters themselves, we have Jack himself, the stubborn man who just wants to kill chaos, but over time learns to understand and care for the bonds he made along with the way. He also learns about his memories about his past life, before the beginning of the game, who he is and why the bonds are important to him, and would later become chaos. The party members themselves, Jed, Ash, Neon, and Sophia, do serve to help with the plot development and have Jack some friends to go on his adventure with. Other characters to take note here is Ataso, who at first may be the villain but is later to be shown as an ally, but due to how corrupt the world is, he can't join in the big moments. There's also a princess who should have gotten another voice actor because everyone used Sherman Lay to voice their characters, and I think it's annoying, especially if you play a lot of video games and anime. You would see her and hear her too often. Also for Jack, his yelling isn't that good in the emotional climax. But back to the game. The writing here is fine, nothing groundbreaking, but Jack's attitude and anger really shine here. Overall, the story itself isn't groundbreaking, but is a good way to help make the journey feel so interesting, and the characters help make the story work. The gameplay here has a bunch of ideas on how they can handle a standard action game, and it shows. Let's discuss a couple of these details. Like I said, this is an action RPG in which you go through dungeons and explore them, looking for enemies to destroy, with usually a boss at the end of the dungeon. This seems very typical for a game to do, but what makes this game stand out is the customization options and its large, massive weapon class system. Let's start with the weapon class system. The weapons themselves are nothing special. You have your basics like a sword, daggers, spears, and much more, and you can use your fists as well. How you make them better is thanks to the skill tree that is a part of a weapon class system. There is a ton like sword fighter, warrior, knight, and much more that will give them new life, like adding special abilities and new moves you can add in your battle, and new moves you can add in the battle menus. And when you reach the bottom, you can unlock new classes that will give you new classes to work for. How you get them is thanks to just battling enemies, and you would get points over time due to how you're leveling up your weapon, which it would go to level 30 for all of them. And of course, you spend those points in the skill tree. The system they have for it makes it feel quick for leveling up your weapons and their classes, which can mean you can get a lot of them done in your playthrough of the game, if you're not planning to 100% it, of course. It happens pretty often that it would make you want to switch weapons and give them a shot and possibly change your playstyle, which helps in variety and for some folks, replay value. Also when battling, you can get a ton of gear which you can equip for you and your party members. They're usually level based, so it's more enticing to go for the higher level ones. And on top of that, they also have a special ability percentage for the weapon class system, which help get more levels and points even faster. As for other aspects of the gameplay, the controls don't feel normal. What I mean is that there are some things that make it off. What I mean is that there are some things that make it off when first playing, like how you use the R1 to attack and use the big rectangle button to open doors, which is odd, but since this is around a 24-hour game, you'll get used to it. Along with what I mentioned, you have a bunch of different special attacks and other ways to handle the combat using R2 for a special combo attack or use the arrow keys to make your party members do the work. As for the bosses, they're very typical for what the game is about and how it works. They do the job just fine for the plot and the gameplay purpose. The game is set up in a map setup, and you would click on the next mission after mission when they get unlocked. The gameplay itself has variety and customization options with the equipment and weapon class system to suit your needs and how you want to handle the combat, which is a good plus in my book. But it gets overwhelming with how you may get so much stuff and have to equip the gear on the characters every time you're at a save point or when you want to pause the game. Even in the world map it happens, which for some isn't a big deal, but for me it takes a while to get everything set as well as saving the game. A more convenient way to make them put on the armor, and I think some autosaving would help here and there. But as a whole, the gameplay knows what it wants to do and it does it well. But it takes time to get everything set in stone if you're planning to give the characters new gear. For a late PS4 game, early PlayStation 5 game, the game doesn't look all that impressive. I've played the PS4 version of the game, so I'll be discussing the visuals on that version of the game. Don't get me wrong here, it looks fine and plays well, but looking at it feels generic and unpolished at some points. Several times it feels like the saturation has picked up way too much, and at the beginning of the game, you could choose Revolution or Performance, and I think I choose Performance, and there are some incidents where it can feel laggy, and during the snow dungeon, I remember it crashing the game I think 1 or 2 times if I remember correctly. But to end this segment, this game looks fine, but there are some problems that push it back to being decent personally. As a game, Strangers of Paradise is a good game for the type of things it wants to do and did them at an acceptable level. The weapon class system and customization options make the gameplay unique, and Jack as a character is funny and goes through some decent character development. Issues include time to prepare yourself takes like 10 minutes to equip new stuff, and the graphics feeling subpar to some extent. I think you might like this game for those who are looking for a new action RPG game to play. I'll give it a 7.7 out of 10. Good game, but I'll probably forget about it and all, because that's just how it is, you know? The Bed.